A golden tear split the sky above Central Park, jagged and glowing like a wound in reality itself. The clouds twisted violently, winds whipping through the trees as people screamed and scattered, their phones trembling in hand, capturing the impossible. For a heartbeat, the city froze, taxicabs screeched to a halt, pigeons scattered into the kaleidoscope of orange and crimson sunlight filtering through the tear, and every eye turned upward as a figure began to fall from the rift. He hit the ground with a thunderous shockwave that shook the concrete and splintered nearby benches, sending shards of wood into the air like shrapnel. The impact created a crater barely a dozen meters across, dust billowing in thick clouds, yet he rose instantly, chest forward, shoulders squared, a beacon of confidence and warmth against the chaos. All might. His costume, brilliant red, white and blue, glimmered under the afternoon sun, the metallic threads catching the last rays like liquid fire. His cape snapped behind him like a flag of hope, and the golden aura of his power shimmered faintly around him, radiating energy that seemed almost tangible. Around him, the park was a battlefield of fear. Civilians crouched behind overturned benches, crying, shielding children, eyes wide as the air shimmered with the sheer presence of the hero. He didn't raise a hand to fight yet. He simply walked forward, boots crunching on concrete, smiling, warm, reassuring, impossibly calm. Then from above came the other presence. A golden silhouette tore through the sky faster than a supersonic jet, descending with the precision of a predator and the confidence of a god. Homelander. His smile was perfect, a gleaming veneer over lethal intent, eyes like twin suns, radiating heat that warped the air. His cape flared out, catching sunlight like molten metal, and the crowd screamed, some dropping to their knees in awe, others running blindly toward the city streets. The moment they locked eyes, the world seemed to still. The distant skyline of Manhattan glimmered with sunset hues, orange reflecting off glass towers, Liberty Island, and the Statue of Liberty casting elongated shadows across the water. But all of it felt secondary, insignificant against the tension between the two titans. Homelander hovered a few meters above the ground, golden aura blazing, heat rippling through the air in visible waves. All Might's golden aura pulsed in response, a wave of calm and hope counteracting Homelander's oppressive force. Then Homelander spoke, voice low, dangerously smooth. "You don't belong here." "All Might," he replied, voice carrying over the chaos, firm and steady. "And neither do you, if you plan on hurting anyone." The air vibrated with their unspoken power. A sudden flurry of movement erupted. Homelander fired a heat vision, slicing through the air with red-hot precision. All Might leapt into the attack, pivoting mid-air, his fist colliding with the beam. The collision sent a shockwave rippling outward, toppling trees, shattering glass windows of nearby buildings, and sending debris flying. Civilians screamed, ducking under overturned park kiosks, the sounds of metal and concrete groaning like living creatures. All Might's fists glowed as he deflected each incoming strike, his movements a dance of impossible speed and power. Yet even as he smiled, helping a child trapped under debris, a skyscraper in the distance began to shudder, cracks racing across glass facades like lightning. Homelander wasn't holding back, he was testing, pushing, a predator savoring the tension. The first collision of superhuman speed shook the entire block. All Might slammed his fists into the ground, sending concentric shockwaves that knocked Homelander back. He skidded across the park, tearing up flowerbeds and benches, and landed in a perfect crouch. His golden aura flared, sending a faint wind that ruffled hair and clothes, lifting dust into glowing spirals around him. "Not bad," Homelander said, voice dripping with amusement. But this city, my rules. And with a single punch, faster than the eye could track, he propelled himself at all might. The air around him combusted from sheer speed and energy, leaving a trail of heat waves shimmering in the fading sunlight. All Might braced, pivoting, and met him mid-flight. The collision of fists was catastrophic. The impact echoed like thunder, glass exploded from nearby windows, concrete cracked and buckled, and a fountain in the park erupted in a geyser of water and stone. The heroes moved like titans on a chessboard, each step, punch, and leap a display of controlled devastation. Civilians were scattered like leaves, yet all Might never lost sight of them. In one motion, he snatched a young girl mid-fall, holding her aloft as he redirected the shockwave of an incoming strike, gently placing her behind a collapsed stone wall. Dust choked the air, sun rays cutting through it in golden beams, illuminating the scene like a living painting of chaos and heroism. Homelander smirked, floating above, aura blazing, heat vision crackling. "You really think smiling and saving people can stop me?" His voice carried both threat and amusement. All Might's eyes narrowed, gaze locked. He replied, voice calm but unyielding, "I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to protect them." And with that he launched himself upward, the force generating a sonic boom that rattled nearby buildings. He struck Homelander in mid-air, sending a shockwave that tore through the park, uprooting trees, scattering benches, and sending a flock of birds screaming into the sky. The sheer force of their clash distorted reality. Shimmering heat and golden energy streaks flashing with each movement. The skyline behind them blurred under the strain of their power. Cars flipped, concrete cracked, and the distant river waves rippled violently, reflecting the sunset like molten metal. All Might landed atop a park statue, cape flaring, fists glowing, readying for the next strike. Homelander hovered, hovering just above the ground, eyes narrowed, aura blazing like the sun itself. The world seemed suspended in a heartbeat, every leaf, every brick, every fragment of dust caught in the cinematic tableau of two godlike figures poised for annihilation. Then, without warning, a shockwave of energy burst outward from the tear in the sky. Reality itself seemed to shudder. The golden rift pulsed violently, sending streaks of unknown energy cascading downward like lightning made of liquid gold. All Might stumbled slightly, shielding himself, as the park quaked beneath their feet. Homelander's smirk faltered, eyes narrowing at the unnatural surge. Something was coming, something beyond even these two titans. The golden tear began to widen, spitting sparks and flares of impossible energy. Trees ignited spontaneously, chunks of earth levitating for a brief heartbeat before crashing back down. The two heroes paused, eyes drawn upward as the rift pulsated with intent, humming like a living thing preparing to birth chaos. All Might's smile tightened, muscles coiled, aura flaring brighter in protective instinct. Homelander's perfect grin became a glare, pride meeting caution for the first time. And then the ground beneath the park shook violently, the city trembling as if warning of an approaching storm neither hero had yet seen. A scream pierced the chaos, not from the civilians, but from the fabric of reality itself. The golden tear shivered violently, and the first shadow emerged. Dark, towering, humanoid, and impossibly vast, glimpses of glowing eyes peered through the rift. Its form was indistinct, a silhouette of destruction, yet its presence made even Homelander hesitate, hovering in the air as if gravity itself no longer obeyed him. All Might's heart pounded, the golden aura surrounding him surging outward like sunlight exploding from a core. Every instinct screamed danger beyond this fight. Civilians screamed, fleeing as the rift began to distort the cityscape, skyscrapers bending slightly, rivers rippling unnaturally. And then, with a suddenness that made the world hold its breath, the shadow surged forward, descending from the rift like a tidal wave of dark energy, ready to crash into Manhattan. Both heroes froze, recognition dawning in the tension of the air. This was no ordinary foe. This was something beyond anything their universes had prepared them for. The city trembled, debris hanging mid-air, golden light clashing against darkness, and as the shadow landed in Central Park, the ground exploding in a shockwave that flattened everything in its radius, All Might and Homelander prepared to face not just each other, but the impossible. The screen of reality itself seemed to fracture. And just as the shadow loomed over the terrified civilians, the story cut sharply, leaving the audience gasping, hanging on the edge. What is this shadow emerging from the tear in reality? And can All Might and Homelander set aside their clash to face it together? Or will their battle destroy the city before it even begins? The shadow's landing tore the park apart. Trees splintered like twigs, benches exploded into fragments, and the fountain erupted in a geyser of shattered stone and water. A low, resonating hum vibrated through the city, like the heartbeat of something alive and malignant. Dust and debris swirled around, glowing faintly in the golden light of All Might's aura, contrasting sharply with the darkness of the newcomer. All Might's fists clenched, golden energy rippling outward, scattering terrified civilians with a protective force. His eyes scanned the massive, shifting silhouette. The form was vaguely humanoid, but its limbs stretched too long, its head distorted, and cracks of glowing violet energy coursed through its blackened skin like molten veins. Every step it took pressed into the earth, warping concrete and sending tremors down streets. Homelander hovered above, eyes narrowing, golden heat vision flickering on. What is that? His usually smug, confident tone carried an edge of uncertainty. Even his cape, usually flawless, rippled unnaturally in the shockwave of power emanating from the shadow. The being's first attack came without warning. A massive sweep of its elongated arms smashed into the ground, sending a seismic wave across the park. Cars were hurled into the air, stone crumbled beneath the impact, and a nearby playground was obliterated in an instant. The force slammed All Might into a wall of trees, splintering trunks and spraying leaves like shrapnel. Yet he rose instantly, fists glowing, aura flaring brighter than ever, golden light radiating outward to protect the civilians still trapped in the park's perimeter. "Everyone out of the way!" he shouted, voice cutting through the chaos, calm yet commanding. In one fluid motion, he launched a shockwave toward the shadow, the force slamming into it with a sound like a collision of planets. The shadow staggered slightly, but did not fall, its mass absorbing the energy and radiating a low, oppressive hum. It turned toward All Might, head tilting unnaturally, glowing violet eyes fixing him like a predator sizing up prey. Homelander, frustrated but calculating, swooped downward with supersonic speed, his fist connected with the shadow's torso, energy crackling from the point of impact, creating a blast that flattened nearby parkland. The shadow barely flinched, yet cracks of violet energy radiated outward like lightning. Its roar was deafening, a sound that seemed to shake bones and minds alike. The air itself distorted, shimmering with waves of dark energy, as if reality was bending around its power. All Might leapt high, cape snapping, energy blazing brighter than the afternoon sun. He collided with Homelander mid-air, and the two heroes struck the shadow together, fists pounding in synchronized precision. Explosions of golden and fiery energy erupted on impact, sending shockwaves outward. Yet the shadow didn't falter. Its elongated fingers lashed outward, grabbing a nearby skyscraper and crushing it with terrifying ease. Glass and steel rained down like a waterfall, smoke and dust spiraling into the sky, obscuring the golden tier that still hovered above. All Might's voice rang out over the destruction, calm and unwavering. "We protect them no matter what." He darted between civilians, plucking those trapped under debris, tossing them aside like rag dolls with perfect control, all while keeping his gaze locked on the approaching threat. His aura flared even more intensely, lighting the park with golden radiance that cut through the violet-tinged shadows. Homelander's eyes narrowed, pride clashing with the undeniable threat. "Fine," he muttered, voice low. "Then let's end this quickly." In a burst of speed, he unleashed a full blast of heat vision, the air distorting violently from the heat, red beams lancing toward the shadow like molten spears. The beams struck, exploding on contact with violet energy surging outward, creating fireballs that rained down across the park. Civilians screamed, diving for cover, dust and smoke combining in swirling clouds that framed the titanic confrontation. The shadow roared again, a bone-chilling sound, and in response, the ground beneath Manhattan cracked like shattered glass. Sidewalks split, subway entrances collapsed, and the river rippled violently as waves surged unnaturally. From the tear above, golden energy cascaded down in violent streaks, lashing against the dark form like lightning fighting the night. All Might and Homelander clashed with the shadow simultaneously. All Might's punch was a radiant blur of power, glowing golden, smashing into the creature's elongated chest. Homelander's heat vision lashed out, searing cracks into its blackened skin. The impact of their combined assault created a shockwave that obliterated surrounding parkland, sending debris flying hundreds of meters. Yet, incredibly, the shadow barely staggered, its form shifting, regenerating, dark energy pulsating with a menacing rhythm. A sudden, violent surge of energy erupted from the shadow. A wave of violet light expanded outward, knocking both All Might and Homelander off balance. Trees uprooted themselves, cars exploded like fireworks, and a wave of heat and psychic pressure swept across the park. Civilians screamed, some thrown through the air by the blast. Even the iconic Statue of Liberty in the distance shimmered under the force, her torch glowing against the darkening sky. All Might gritted his teeth, aura flaring brighter than ever, golden light spiraling outward. "We won't let you hurt them," he shouted, barreling forward with a speed that bent the air, fists glowing like twin suns. He collided with the shadow mid-air, striking again and again with relentless punches, each one detonating in fiery explosions of light and energy. The shadow retaliated with elongated limbs, each strike creating shockwaves that tore through the park, shattering stone and metal alike. Homelander, hovering above, eyes narrowed, smirk replaced with grim focus, joined the assault again. He launched into supersonic maneuvers, slashing with heat vision, each beam cutting through the air like molten knives. The shadow's form convulsed under their attacks, but each blow seemed to fuel it, dark energy pulsing, spreading outward like a living wound in reality itself. And then, suddenly, the golden tear above flared violently, brighter than the sun, splitting in multiple jagged lines. From the rift, a surge of energy struck the shadow, creating a massive explosion of violet and gold that ripped through the park. Concrete, trees, and debris were hurled hundreds of meters, a cloud of smoke and dust swallowing the battlefield. Yet when the dust cleared, the shadow still stood, taller, darker, more imposing, now with tendrils of energy writhing around its body like living serpents. All Might's expression hardened, jaw set, eyes glowing gold. This is unlike anything I've ever faced. Homelander's usual arrogance faltered. He hovered in place, aura blazing, eyes scanning the form above him. "Neither have I," he muttered. The two godlike beings, once rivals, now faced a threat beyond anything either had imagined. The shadow's tendrils lashed outward, catching nearby buildings, ripping walls apart, and sending chunks of concrete spinning through the air like missiles. Civilians screamed in terror as the tendrils swiped through Central Park, flattening every obstacle. All Might leapt forward again, aura flaring, energy spiraling in blinding brilliance. Homelander followed, heat vision cutting through the haze of smoke and debris. Together they collided with the shadow once more, gold against violet, fire against darkness, but the being's tendrils wrapped around both heroes mid-air, lifting them effortlessly. The sheer weight of its energy pressed against them, forcing them down toward the shattered park below. And as the ground approached, cracked and smouldering beneath them, the shadow's voice, deep, resonating, unnatural, echoed through the air. "You are insignificant, yet amusing." The two heroes struggled, aura and heat flaring in desperate defiance, but the shadow's power was overwhelming, bending reality itself around them. Trapped mid-air, the heroes' golden and fiery forces clashing against the shadow's dark tendrils, the city trembling beneath them. Can All Might and Homelander break free before the shadow crushes both them and Manhattan itself? Or is the park, and perhaps all of New York, doomed in an instant? Air burned in their lungs, All Might and Homelander dangled mid-air, tendrils of dark energy constricting their movements like iron chains. Each pulse of the shadow's power bent the air, distorting sound, turning screams into eerie echoes. The city beneath trembled as glass shattered, asphalt cracked, and fountains of debris erupted from ruptured streets. The golden tear above twisted violently, flaring streaks of light across the skyline, casting eerie shadows against the chaos. All Might's eyes blazed, gold spilling into the surrounding haze. "We fight together, or we fail." His voice, booming and unwavering, cut through the roar of destruction. With a sudden surge, he twisted mid-air, fists glowing brighter than ever, launching a flurry of punches directly into the shadow's chest. Each strike detonated in explosive bursts of golden energy, rippling outward and pushing back the tendrils ever so slightly. Homelander, hovering above, narrowed his eyes. Pride gave way to desperation. Heat vision lashed in all directions, beams slicing through the air with the hiss of molten metal. He targeted the shadow's tendrils, severing some, only to see them regenerate instantly, writhing like living serpents. Civilians scattered below, some trapped under debris, their terrified eyes reflecting the surreal battle unfolding above. The shadow shrieked, a sound that split the sky itself, vibrating through steel and concrete. Its tendrils lashed violently, knocking All Might and Homelander into different directions, tearing up streets, flinging cars like paper planes. Smoke, dust, and shards of glass spiraled in towering columns, shimmering with violet energy that crackled and hummed with malice. All Might clenched his fists, golden aura flaring to maximum. "We need to combine our strength. Now!" he shouted. Homelander's grin returned, sharp and cold. "Finally some sense," he said. Speeding down, he grabbed All Might's arm mid-air, energy from both colliding in a radiant explosion of gold and red. They rocketed toward the shadow, fists synchronized, aura and heat vision intertwining into a blinding storm of light. The shadow snarled, twisting violently as the combined assault struck it mid-torso. Violet energy erupted, tendrils writhing, sending arcs of power into the air. Buildings nearby cracked and groaned. A fountain exploded, sending water mixed with concrete shards into the sky. Civilians screamed, running for cover as debris fell like rain. Then the shadow lashed back. Tendrils shot upward, piercing the air, wrapping around the heroes with crushing force. All Might's aura blazed even brighter, pushing outward like a living shield, fragments of debris bouncing off. Homelander's eyes flared, heat vision igniting in a desperate, concentrated beam aimed directly at the shadow's head. The collision was cataclysmic. A wave of energy exploded outward, turning streets into craters and tossing nearby cars into the river. The skyline of Manhattan flickered under the tremor. Even the Statue of Liberty shimmered as light and darkness battled above her torch. Smoke and dust shrouded the heroes, yet through the haze, All Might's golden silhouette glowed unwaveringly, while Homelander's red beams cut through the darkness like molten knives. A moment of eerie silence followed. The shadow hung suspended, tendrils twitching, chest smoking with residual energy. It glared at them with eyes glowing deeper violet, and then it laughed, a sound that was equal parts amusement and malice. "You dare combine your power? Pathetic!" The voice resonated through the shattered city, vibrating through walls, streets, and hearts alike. With a sudden surge, the shadow's body expanded violently, dark energy tearing outward in jagged waves. The tendrils shot outward like giant whips, smashing into skyscrapers, uprooting trees, and sending massive chunks of concrete flying like missiles. All Might and Homelander struggled mid-air, aura and heat flaring as they dodged debris. All Might's fist glowed like a sun, swinging with precision to shatter tendrils before they could reach the street. Homelander's heat vision cut through incoming energy arcs, each strike sizzling and fizzling in the violet storm. Civilians screamed, diving into pockets of safety, their cries lost beneath the roar of city-wide destruction. All Might's cape flared violently in the air, golden aura spiraling, dust and rubble flying off with each movement. He adjusted mid-air, landing with a thunderous force on a shattered stretch of park, the ground cracking beneath him. Homelander hovered beside him, fists clenched, eyes narrowing. "We end this now," he said, voice low, almost reverent. All Might nodded. "For them. For the city." They charged in unison. The shadow lashed out, tendrils spinning, but the two heroes moved with uncanny synchronicity. All Might struck from above, fist exploding in golden light against the shadow's head. Homelander fired concentrated heat vision from below, searing a gash across its chest. Violet energy collided with gold and red, arcs of power snapping through the air like jagged lightning. The shadow reeled, staggered slightly, and then retaliated in an instant. A shockwave of dark energy shot outward, toppling buildings, shattering streets, and throwing both heroes backward through the air. Smoke, dust, and shards of concrete clouded the battlefield. Above, the golden tier flared violently, streaks of light cracking the sky as if reality itself teetered on the edge of collapse. Through the haze, All Might and Homelander rose, battered but unbroken. The shadow's tendrils writhed like serpents, curling around shattered remnants of Central Park, glowing violet against the orange gold of the setting sun. The city itself seemed to hold its breath. All Might's eyes burned with determination. "We cannot fail. Not here, not now." Homelander's smirk returned, sharper than before, eyes burning with intensity. "Then let's give them a show they'll never forget." The two heroes launched again, faster, brighter, more unstoppable, ready to collide with the shadow in a final, desperate onslaught. The shadow unleashes a cataclysmic pulse of dark energy, enveloping both heroes in a maelstrom of violet power, tearing the park and possibly Manhattan apart. Will All Might and Homelander survive the tidal wave of destruction, or is the city about to be erased in one blinding strike? The air trembled. The shadow's pulse of violet energy erupted outward like a living storm, sweeping through Central Park with the force of a tidal wave. Trees splintered, fountains shattered, and chunks of earth were flung into the sky like meteors. Dust, smoke, and sparks of violet lightning swirled together, creating a chaotic vortex that twisted the sun's fading light into molten streaks of orange and purple. All Might and Homelander were trapped mid-air, caught in the edge of the surge. The force pressed against their bodies, bending even their superhuman strength. All Might's golden aura flickered under the pressure, but he clenched his fists, teeth gritted. "Focus! Control the energy! Redirect it!" His voice boomed through the chaos, carrying a calm authority that cut through the screaming wind and shattering debris. Homelander's eyes glowed crimson, heat vision stabbing into the violet storm. He shot multiple beams at the swirling mass, each one slicing through tendrils and arcs of dark energy, only to see them regenerate instantly. The shadow's laugh echoed, deep and resonant, vibrating the ground beneath the city streets. "You cannot contain me! Not here! Not anywhere!" The vortex grew, a roiling maelstrom of dark energy, tearing at the edges of reality. Cars, buses, and fragments of buildings were hurled like toys, scattering chaos across Manhattan. Windows exploded in rain-like showers, and the screams of terrified civilians became a haunting backdrop to the epic confrontation above. All Might and Homelander locked eyes, recognizing the gravity of the moment. Without words, they synchronized, movements instinctive. All Might's fist glowed brighter, radiating a golden light that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of hope itself. Homelander's heat vision intensified, turning from red to molten white-hot, slicing the violet tendrils with surgical precision. Together they launched into the storm. All Might barreled in from above, spinning through the air like a comet, fist connecting with the shadow's core. Energy exploded outward, golden waves colliding with the violet, arcs of power tearing the vortex apart in chaotic bursts. Homelander surged from below, firing a concentrated heat vision beam directly into the shadow's chest, his eyes burning like twin suns. The collision was deafening. Buildings shuddered, streets cracked, and the air shimmered with raw energy. Debris flew in all directions, and the vortex shuddered violently, unable to contain the combined assault. The shadow shrieked, a sound that split the skyline in two, twisting the air like it was tearing itself apart. In the midst of the chaos, All Might spotted civilians trapped under a collapsing bridge. With incredible speed, he leapt through falling debris, aura blazing, scooping them to safety before the bridge crumbled entirely. Each rescued person left in his wake glowed faintly with golden light, like sparks of hope amidst the destruction. Homelander followed, slicing through the remaining tendrils with precision, eyes scanning the battlefield. "We can't let it escape the park, or the city dies." His tone carried steel, and his movements were a blur as he carved through waves of shadow energy. The shadow, sensing its imminent defeat, grew more desperate. Its body expanded monstrously, tendrils writhing like living serpents, each tipped with glimmering violet blades that cut through the air. It lashed out, tearing streets apart, hurling chunks of concrete and steel toward the heroes. All Might and Homelander fought back with synchronized ferocity. Golden fists met violet tendrils. Heat vision burned through arcs of dark energy, and the air ignited with the clash of powers. The city around them became a battlefield of fire, smoke, and debris. The skyline now jagged and broken, yet the Statue of Liberty remains standing, a silent witness to the chaos. With a roar, All Might propelled himself into the shadow's core, fists spinning in a golden whirlwind. Homelander added his heat vision in perfect harmony, piercing the violet heart. The shadow screamed, soul-shaking cry that reverberated through Manhattan, cracking skyscrapers and shattering glass across Times Square. Then, in a blinding explosion of gold, red, and violet, the vortex imploded inward, sending a shockwave that hurled both heroes back. Streets were flattened, trees uprooted, and cars stacked like toys. Dust and smoke cloaked the park, and the air stank of ozone and burning concrete. All Might rose first, chest heaving, aura flickering but intact. Homelander hovered beside him, eyes scanning the ruins, heat vision still glowing. "It's not gone," All Might said, voice strained but determined. From the center of the rubble, violet tendrils began reforming, thinner but faster, writhing like vipers ready to strike it again. The shadow's eyes glimmered through the debris, a malevolent promise of survival. "This is only the beginning. You cannot stop me forever," the voice echoed, dripping with malice as it vanished into the ruins, leaving an unsettling silence in its wake. All Might's fists clenched. "Then we'll finish this. Together?" Homelander's grin returned, sharper than ever. "Finally, a real fight." As the dust settles, Manhattan trembles under the remnants of the battle. But from the shadows, a new surge of violet energy rises, stronger, faster, more vicious. The shadow is evolving. Will All Might and Homelander survive this next assault? Or is the city about to face a darkness unlike anything before? The city groaned under the weight of the battle. Manhattan streets had become a jagged labyrinth of broken concrete, smoldering cars, and shattered glass that glittered like deadly diamonds under the fading sun. Central Park was unrecognizable, a scar of uprooted trees and craters where fountains and pathways once stood. Yet at the epicenter of this chaos, the shadow pulsed, coalescing into a darker, more monstrous form. Its body now a writhing mass of spiked violet tendrils, eyes glowing like molten amethyst, dripping malevolence from every inch. All Might hovered mid-air, cape tattered, golden aura flickering but roaring with defiance. His eyes locked on the evolving enemy, heart hammering, muscles tense. Homelander descended beside him, wings of light barely keeping him aloft, his perfect smile now twisted into a battle-ready snarl. "It's growing stronger," All Might muttered, voice steady despite the shaking ground. Suddenly, the shadow erupted. Spikes shot out like jagged meteors, tearing streets apart, ripping through skyscrapers with ear-splitting screeches of metal and stone. Cars twisted mid-air, fragments of asphalt spiraled upward, and the wind roared like a living beast. The ground split beneath them, and streams of violet energy licked the cracked concrete. All Might charged first, fists blazing gold, aura sparking like a supernova. Each punch sent shockwaves that blasted chunks of debris outward, scattering the violet tendrils. Homelander followed, heat vision cutting a path through the storm, eyes glowing molten red, slicing tendrils as though they were made of paper. The shadow lashed back, tentacles spinning, snapping like whips with tips igniting in violet flame. One lash tore a skyscraper's side, sending glass cascading like rainfall. Homelander dodged with superhuman speed, eyes narrow, his heat vision carving through another tendril. "We need to combine our attacks," he shouted. All Might nodded, summoning every ounce of strength. His golden aura flared to blinding brilliance, fists spinning in a golden cyclone of pure force. "United we strike! Detroit smash!" he bellowed, launching a devastating punch into a massive tendril. The energy from the punch collided with Homelander's heat vision beam in mid-air, forming a massive conflagration of molten gold and red against the violet storm. The explosion shook the city, windows shattered miles away, and the vortex of debris twisted skyward like a tornado of ruin. But the shadow had adapted. Its core expanded, mutating into a massive, horned visage, eyes blazing brighter than ever. A terrifying scream filled the air, resonating like a symphony of destruction. Each tendril now crackled with dark lightning, striking randomly across streets and skyscrapers, igniting fires that spread like wildfire. Civilians ran, screaming, dodging falling rubble and blazing debris, while news helicopters hovered just out of reach, capturing every insane second. From the top of a shattered tower, All Might's gaze swept across the chaos, golden aura illuminating the destruction. "We can't hold it much longer there, but we won't give up." Homelander smirked, flying low, his voice cutting through the roar. "Then let's finish this in style." He swooped in, fists trailing white-hot energy, striking tendrils in precise arcs, creating a destructive rhythm that seemed almost choreographed. All Might mirrored the movement, golden fists spinning in harmony with Homelander's strikes. The collision was apocalyptic. Violet energy met golden and red power, detonating in explosions that shattered blocks, sent vehicles flying, and cracked streets open like paper. Sparks ignited the air. Dust and debris swirled into a tornado that distorted reality itself, and the shadow's scream became a thunderous roar shaking the skyline. Amidst the chaos, All Might spotted a massive tendril aiming directly for a group of trapped civilians near Times Square. Without hesitation, he launched, fists blazing a golden trail through the air. In one swift, heroic motion, he slammed into the tendril, shattering it into splintering shards that rained harmlessly around the civilians. Homelander followed immediately, slicing through the remaining tendrils with precision, heat vision carving arcs of molten red light that illuminated the smoky battlefield. Together they surged forward, a coordinated storm of raw power, forcing the shadow to retreat slightly, its form quivering in fury. But then the shadow unleashed its ultimate attack. From its core, a pulse of energy exploded outward, expanding into a massive shockwave that lifted debris, shattered buildings, and hurled both heroes back. Streets buckled like paper under the force, and the skyline seemed to bend as if reality itself was cracking. All Might slammed into the remnants of a building, dust choking his lungs, aura dimming but burning strong. Homelander collided with a smashed billboard, wings quivering as he regained control. Both rose, battered but unbroken, eyes locked on the shadow now towering over them, energy radiating like a living sun of violet hatred. The shadow hissed, each word a promise of annihilation. "You are nothing, merely mortals playing with gods." Its tendrils twitched, ready to strike again, faster, sharper, more lethal than before. All Might gritted his teeth, aura flaring. "Mortals or not, we protect this world, we fight, and we don't give up." Homelander's grin returned, sharper than ever. "Then let's end this together." The shadow's ultimate form looms over the city, tentacles crackling with lethal energy, eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. All Might and Homelander brace for a final, earth-shattering clash. Can their combined might overcome this godlike terror, or will Manhattan fall to darkness? The skyline of Manhattan had become a war-torn nightmare. Smoke spiraled into the bruised sky, twisted steel and shattered glass jutted like jagged teeth, and fires burned in irregular patches, casting flickering shadows over streets, cracked and buckled like dried clay. From the epicenter of destruction, the Shadow's ultimate form towered like a corrupted deity, violet energy pulsating with each heartbeat of the monstrous core. Every pulse sent tremors through the ground, shattering windows miles away and sending vehicles spinning into chaos. All Might hovered above the chaos, golden aura blazing like a supernova caught in motion. His cape flared violently in the toxic wind, tattered but proud. This is unlike anything I've faced," he muttered under his breath, voice cutting through the roar of crumbling buildings. His eyes, however, burned with unwavering resolve. Homelander descended beside him, body glowing like molten gold and red, heat vision radiating, the perfect, unyielding smile now sharpened with battle focus. "Then it's perfect," he said, tone cold, eyes scanning for weaknesses. "Time to see if you really belong here." The Shadow surged, tendrils whipping outward in violent arcs, smashing skyscrapers, tearing streets apart. Its core glowed with sinister brilliance, revealing pulsating, jagged veins that crackled with raw, chaotic energy. One massive tentacle struck a hospital, sending chunks of concrete and debris hurtling toward civilians trapped inside. All Might shot forward, golden fists blazing a trail of light, aura flaring with each punch. He slammed into the tentacle mid-air, shockwave radiating outward, pulverizing debris into dust. "You will not harm them!" he roared, fists spinning, creating a hurricane of golden energy that deflected other smaller tendrils. Homelander swooped in from above, heat vision cutting precise lines through the remaining tendrils. Violet sparks erupted where red and gold clashed with purple, lighting the ruined city like a hellish aurora. The air was thick with smoke, the scent of scorched steel and concrete burning in the wind. Suddenly the Shadow shrieked, its voice resonating like 1,000 broken screams, vibrating in the very bones of the city. Its tendrils lashed in unison, faster, sharper, aimed to slice the heroes apart. Skyscrapers crumbled under the assault, glass raining like deadly confetti. Civilians screamed from the remaining safe zones, trying to escape the apocalyptic storm. All Might's eyes narrowed. "We need to synchronize. Every punch, every strike, every beam must hit together." Homelander nodded, expression tightening, eyes blazing. "Agreed. Let's create a storm they'll never forget." Together they launched the most coordinated attack yet. All Might spun his fists into a golden cyclone, aura stretching into radiant trails of light across the battlefield. Homelander fired twin heat vision beams that intersected with All Might's spinning punches, igniting massive explosions where their power collided with the violet tendrils. Buildings quaked, streets tore open, and a massive wave of energy hurled debris into the air, creating a tornado of destruction. The Shadow screamed again, core glowing brighter, pulsating violently as it reformed its tendrils into sharper, longer, jagged extensions. Its body seemed to split and stretch, reaching toward the sky like black lightning, writhing, hungry, unstoppable. One enormous spike hurled toward All Might, faster than the eye could follow. He braced himself, aura flaring like a sun, and caught it mid-air with a titanic blow, sparks flying as metal and energy collided. Homelander accelerated, wings slicing through debris-laden wind, and rammed the Shadow's core with supersonic speed. The collision sent shockwaves through the city, shattering blocks, bending steel, and igniting secondary explosions that ripped across nearby streets. Violet energy erupted outward, knocking both heroes back, but neither faltered. From the top of a crumbling skyscraper, All Might's voice echoed, strong and commanding. "This ends now!" He lunged again, golden fists spinning at impossible speed. aura stretching into blinding streaks that lit the smoke-filled city like a sunrise of raw power. Homelander followed, wings slicing, heat vision blazing in sync with every strike. The Shadow's ultimate counterattack surged. A pulse of dark energy exploded outward, creating a massive shockwave that twisted reality. Streets buckled like wet paper, cars flew, and concrete erupted into jagged geysers. The heroes were thrown back, smashing into ruined buildings, but each time they rose, aura flaring, teeth gritted, eyes locked on the monstrous core. Civilians screamed below, watching as godlike beings clashed above their city. News helicopters spun dangerously close, capturing every insane second. Streams of molten gold, searing red and violent violet painted the skyline in an apocalyptic symphony of light and destruction. All Might clenched his fists, aura blazing brighter than ever. We fight for them, for this city. His golden punch collided with a massive tendril, shattering it, sparks and violet energies scattering like falling stars. Homelander fired a simultaneous heat vision barrage, piercing multiple tendrils at once, red beams cutting arcs through the smoky haze. They moved as one, unstoppable, a hurricane of coordinated destruction, forcing the Shadow backward despite its monstrous size and power. But the Shadow's eyes burned brighter, core pulsating violently, energy flaring into tendrils sharp enough to pierce steel. A massive tendril lashed toward Times Square, heading directly for trapped civilians. All Might's eyes flared and he screamed, "Detroit smash!" launching in a single, blinding arc, golden fists striking with cataclysmic force, shattering the tendril just meters from its target. Homelander followed, slicing the remaining extensions with precise, red-hot heat vision arcs. Together they drove the Shadow back, forcing it to retreat into a crater of its own making, energy pulsing, breathing, mutating. The Shadow recoils, regenerating faster than expected, its core glowing brighter than the sun, tendrils now moving independently, striking in unpredictable patterns. All Might and Homelander hover above the city, battered but unbroken. The final battle is imminent, and the next clash could destroy Manhattan entirely. The city trembled like a living thing. Every street, every building, every terrified scream resonated in a symphony of chaos. Manhattan's skyline was now jagged, half-broken, smoke and fire streaking into the darkening sky. The Shadow's core glowed violently, a black sun in the ruined heart of the city, tendrils whipping outward like living lightning. All Might hovered mid-air, golden aura flaring so brightly it cast long, molten shadows across the streets. Sweat and blood streaked his face, cape tattered, fists still blazing with unstoppable energy. "We need to hit the core together, or nothing will survive," he shouted over the roar of the storm.
Homelander hovered beside him, wings slicing the smoky wind, his perfect smile gone, replaced with grim focus. Heat vision lined his eyes like twin molten blades. "Then we strike as one, no hesitation." With a roar that shook the clouds, the Shadow unleashed a barrage of tentacles at blinding speed. Skyscrapers crumbled under their sheer force, glass shattered and concrete erupted in geysers, sending vehicles flying like toys. Civilians scattered into alleys and rubble-strewn streets, eyes wide, phones recording apocalyptic chaos. All Might lunged forward, golden aura expanding like a second sun, and each punch spun faster than the eye could follow, leaving after images of light in the smoky haze. Every impact sent shockwaves that tore chunks of debris into the air, sparks and violet energy colliding with radiant gold in breathtaking bursts. Homelander followed immediately, heat vision slicing with pinpoint precision. Beams cut through tendrils, arcs of molten red colliding with the violet of the shadow. Sparks flew, purple energy vaporizing into fragments of light. The city below shook violently with every collision, windows exploding and streets fracturing. The shadow shrieked, a sound that pierced the soul, its tendrils now forming jagged, whip-like weapons, striking unpredictably. One tendril slammed into the side of the Empire State Building, shattering it like brittle glass. Another tore through Central Park, uprooting trees and tossing cars into the air. All Might braced, fists spinning in a blinding arc of golden energy, intercepting the strikes mid-air. He shouted, "We're not backing down! Not now!" The impact sent him and the shadow flying backward, tearing a path of destruction across Fifth Avenue. Homelander's wings sliced the smoky wind as he barreled toward the core, twin beams of heat vision converging. He slammed into the shadow's chest with supersonic force, sending arcs of violet energy scattering like meteor showers. Sparks and molten gold collided in a blinding explosion that lit the night sky, silhouetting the ruins of the city like a painting of apocalypse. The shadow recoiled but regenerated instantly, tendrils flaring outward, faster, sharper, more unpredictable. Its core pulsed violently, glowing brighter than the sun itself. One massive spike shot toward Times Square, aimed directly at trapped civilians. All Might's eyes flared with golden fire. He launched into the attack, aura stretching into radiant streaks, fists spinning faster than sound. Detroit. Smash! The punch collided with the spike mid-air, sending shards of debris raining down in a dazzling display of force and light. Homelander followed, slicing through residual tendrils with blazing heat vision arcs. Together their combined strike pushed the shadow back, forcing it to retreat into a crater of rubble. Energy pulsating violently like a storm preparing to unleash its full fury. The shadow paused, tendrils curling upward like snakes, core glowing so bright it cast long, violent shadows across the entire city. Its energy now warped reality itself, bending the air, making buildings wobble, streets twist, and sky ripple with jagged streaks of violet lightning. All Might and Homelander hovered, battered but unbroken, golden and red energy crackling, wings flaring, fists glowing, aura radiating power that lit the entire ruined skyline. They exchanged a glance, silent, unspoken agreement. "It ends now," All Might whispered, fists glowing brighter than ever. The shadow's core exploded outward in a wave of raw energy, tendrils lashing like a black hurricane, city trembling beneath. Civilians screamed in alleys, cars lifted off streets, and debris swirled into tornadoes of destruction. Homelander fired all his remaining heat vision in a concentrated barrage, beams cutting arcs directly into the heart of the shadow. All Might's punches spun in sync, golden streaks converging with red beams, combining into a blinding vortex of pure energy. Sparks, light, and violet tendrils collided violently. The shockwave ripped through Manhattan, shaking the very foundations of skyscrapers. The shadow shrieked again, tendrils flailing wildly, trying to escape the perfect synchronization of the hero's attack. Its core glowed blindingly bright, then exploded in a massive eruption of violet and gold, energy ripping the streets apart, sending debris and light spiraling into the sky like fireworks of apocalypse. The shockwave slammed into Times Square, flattening everything in its radius, yet through the chaos All Might and Homelander remained hovering, battered, bloodied, but unbroken. Smoke and dust swirled around them, illuminating their forms in dramatic, heroic silhouettes against the ruined cityscape. The shadow is gone, for now. But deep in the wreckage, a pulse of violet energy flickers, faster,
and stronger than before. Manhattan lies in ruins, civilians trapped in pockets of rubble, and All Might and Homelander hover above, exhausted but vigilant. Something worse is coming, a threat that even their combined might not survive. Manhattan lay in ruin, streets split open like scarred earth, buildings crumpled into jagged skeletons, smoke and violet sparks curling into the twilight. Civilians crouched behind wreckage, eyes wide, hearts pounding, phones capturing every second of the apocalyptic battle. Yet above it all, two figures hovered, All Might glowing with golden resilience, and Homelander, eyes still burning molten red, wings slicing the air. The air vibrated unnaturally, warping around them. The faint hum of energy wasn't just from the city's destruction, it came from beneath. A dark pulse, slower, heavier, feeding off chaos, surged from the wreckage where the Shadow's core had detonated. Sparks of violet lightning leapt from cracked concrete, twisting reality like molten threads, as if the city itself was trembling in fear. All Might's eyes narrowed, scanning the ground below. Something survived, something bigger. His golden aura flared, fists clenching until energy rippled across the air like liquid light. Homelander's wings flexed, slicing the smoky sky. I see it. I can feel it. It's, watching, waiting, and it's hungry. His voice was cold, devoid of charm, sharpened with predatory awareness. Suddenly a fissure tore through the center of Times Square, black energy swirling outward like a storm, tendrils writhing in every direction. From it, a colossal figure emerged, tall as the tallest skyscraper, armored in black scales that shimmered with violet energy. Its eyes glowed a sickly green, staring at the heroes with a cold intelligence. Its wings unfolded, massive, leathery, blacker than night, slicing through the smoke. The Shadow wasn't gone, it had evolved. A deep, resonating growl echoed through the canyon of shattered buildings, vibrating through bone and stone alike. Cars skidded across cracked asphalt, light poles bent under invisible forces, and even the Statue of Liberty's torch flickered, as if sensing impending doom. All Might clenched his fists, golden light spiraling outward in concentric shockwaves. We can't let it reach the civilians. Not like last time. He shot forward, cape trailing like molten fire. The ground shook beneath his super speed, cracks spiderwebbing out from each footstep. Homelander followed immediately, descending from the sky with wings slicing the air. Heat vision arcs ignited, slicing chunks of rubble into molten shards as he prepared for the inevitable clash. The evolved Shadow struck first. Wings slammed into the streets, sending waves of destruction outward. Skyscrapers trembled. Fissures ran like lightning bolts across the pavement. Its arms stretched unnaturally, tendrils lashing toward All Might and Homelander with lethal precision. All Might dodged, spinning in the air, aura leaving blinding golden trails. He unleashed a barrage of punches, each landing with enough force to crumble buildings, sending shockwaves into the swirling vortex of debris. Sparks collided violently with the Shadow's tendrils, creating arcs of violet and gold that lit the ruined skyline like apocalyptic fireworks. Homelander hovered beside him, eyes narrowing as heat vision carved precise slashes through the armored scales. Its skin, it's absorbing our energy. His voice sharpened. Every beam of heat vision now seemed less effective, melting into the violet-black armor without leaving lasting damage. The Shadow laughed, a chilling, echoing sound that shook windows miles away. You fight like children. Its massive fists slammed into the street, sending molten concrete flying. The heroes were thrown back, but caught themselves mid-air, golden and red energy flaring as dust and debris rained around them. All Might's aura blazed even brighter. "Then we fight like gods," he rocketed forward, fist colliding with the Shadow's chest, sending shockwaves outward. The impact cratered the street below, glass shattering, fire and sparks erupting from every building. But the Shadow barely flinched. The creature's tail whipped upward, smashing into a high-rise, sending it tumbling like a toy. Tentacles burst from its back, writhing toward the civilians trapped in the streets. Homelander reacted instantly, slicing through them with twin arcs of heat vision, vaporizing debris and clearing a path, but it wasn't enough. The Shadow's regeneration was faster, stronger, its attacks relentless. Suddenly, the ground beneath All Might cracked, energy spikes of violet light shooting upward, restraining him mid-air. The Shadow roared, wings beating violently, generating a hurricane of wind, dust, and shards. Homelander struggled to maintain flight, wings slicing the air against impossible resistance. All Might gritted his teeth, golden aura flaring like a beacon. "We need a plan now!" But the Shadow was already adapting, every move faster, stronger, smarter. Each punch and heat vision beam that landed was absorbed, fueling it further. Its glowing green eyes burned with the knowledge that it had anticipated every hero move. From the fissure behind the evolved Shadow, another pulse of energy emerges, slightly different, golden, almost familiar. Something else is coming, a power that might rival even All Might. And as the city trembles beneath them, the heroes realize they may not be facing one monster, but two. The air trembled, thick with ash, dust, and a tangible sense of dread. Manhattan's skyline, once a symbol of human achievement, now resembled a jagged battlefield scarred by titans. Buildings groaned and crumbled, their steel frames twisted into unnatural shapes. Fires raged across rooftops, licking the clouds above with orange tongues, casting long flickering shadows across the streets below. All Might hovered mid-air, golden aura radiating like a sun, muscles tensed, eyes scanning the fissures that had erupted from the earth. "Something else is here," he muttered, the weight of dread settling in his chest. From the new fissure, a beam of golden energy erupted, pulsating rhythmically. It wasn't chaotic, it was controlled, deliberate. A figure slowly materialized, rising from the light like a celestial force. The glow coalesced into a man clad in silver armor, his eyes shining with an unearthly blue brilliance. Each step he took caused the air to ripple, waves of energy distorting reality itself. Homelander hovered beside All Might, wings fluttering nervously. "I feel it," he hissed, voice tense. "This one, it's not human." The Golden Warrior landed in the center of Times Square. Every neon sign flickered, every streetlight dimmed as though the city itself recognized the magnitude of his presence. Civilians were frozen, caught between awe and terror, some screaming silently behind shattered windows. All Might clenched his fists, aura blazing hotter than ever. "Who are you?" His voice boomed over the chaos, resonating with authority, yet curiosity and caution laced each word. The golden figure lifted a hand, energy spiraling around his fingers like liquid sunlight. "I am Guardian Prime," he said, voice deep, melodic, and echoing with resonance. "I have sensed the imbalance, and I have come to restore it." The Shadow, perched like a demonic god amidst the ruins, twisted its head, green eyes narrowing. It sensed a threat unlike any it had encountered. It stretched its wings, preparing to strike. "Another pawn," it hissed, voice like grinding stone. "Another weakling to fall." All Might's eyes met Homelander's, silent communication passing between them. They knew they couldn't afford hesitation. This new force could tip the scales, but it could also bring destruction if uncontrolled. The shadow lunged first, tendrils writhing like serpents of darkness, aiming directly for Guardian Prime. He raised his arms and a golden shield of pure energy erupted, deflecting the attack with a sound like crashing thunder. Sparks of violet and gold collided mid-air, lighting up the streets like fireworks, each explosion sending shards of concrete and steel flying. All Might rocketed forward, fists crackling with energy. "We can't let it overwhelm him," he shouted. He landed beside Guardian Prime, striking the shadow with a series of rapid punches that shook the ground and sent shockwaves through the air. The shadow staggered, recoiling from the combined force, but it recovered instantly, faster than ever. Homelander unleashed a beam of heat vision, carving through the air, slicing one of the shadow's massive wings. The creature roared, fury and pain blending into one monstrous sound, wings whipping violently, knocking cars and debris across the streets like toys. Guardian Prime extended his arms, golden energy erupting in a dome that rippled outward, pushing debris and civilians back to safety. His aura flared, a radiant light that cut through the smoke and darkness, illuminating the chaos like a beacon of hope. All Might, Homelander, together. All Might nodded, a fierce grin splitting his face. "Let's finish this, together." The heroes launched themselves at the shadow simultaneously. All Might's fists collided with its chest. Homelander's heat vision tore through its armored scales, and Guardian Prime's energy waves surged like a tidal force, each strike amplifying the next. The shadow screamed, a sound so loud it shook the very foundations of Manhattan, and then it retaliated. Its tail smashed into the pavement, sending a tremor down every street. Tendrils lashed out with deadly precision, striking at all three heroes simultaneously. For a moment, the battle froze in horrifying balance. Gold, red, and violet energies collided, sending sparks, debris, and waves of shock through the city. The heroes' expressions were intense, faces etched with determination, sweat and dust clinging to them, eyes blazing against the overwhelming darkness. Then, a sudden, almost imperceptible ripple in the air, a distortion, a heartbeat of energy, caught Guardian Prime's attention. His eyes widened. "It's not just adapting, it's learning, faster than we can anticipate." The shadow's massive claws slashed downward, tearing a crater into the heart of Times Square, debris flying in every direction. All Might was thrown back, crashing through a skyscraper's shattered facade. Homelander barely maintained control, his wings battered by the shockwave. Guardian Prime's shield flickered under the intensity of the assault. A new pulse, this one darker and more violent, surged from the ground. The shadow's green eyes glowed brighter, and from the fissure behind it, the ground began to churn violently. "It's awakening! More of it coming!" the shadow hissed, a grin spreading across its monstrous face. The camera of narration would pan across the devastated cityscape, fires burning, debris flying, shattered glass reflecting the chaos, and the three heroes poised, battered but unbroken, against an enemy that seemed almost impossible to defeat. As a thunderous rumble shakes the horizon, the fissure behind the shadow splits wide open, and something far larger, far darker than the first shadow begins to rise, a leviathan of pure destruction. The city holds its breath. Manhattan might not survive what comes next. The air vibrated with raw, unrestrained power. Manhattan's skyline, already shattered, trembled as the fissure widened, the earth groaning under the pressure of something monstrous beneath. Dust swirled in thick, blinding clouds, punctuated by bursts of fire and sparks from damaged power lines. The golden light of Guardian Prime clashed violently with the violet-green aura of the shadow. creating a chaotic storm of color that painted the ruins of the city in surreal, almost apocalyptic hues. All Might hovered, fists clenched, aura flaring, his muscles flexed with tension, cape whipping wildly behind him. This isn't just a fight," he muttered through gritted teeth, scanning the widening fissure. "It's an invasion." Homelander's golden eyes narrowed as he hovered at the edge of the battlefield, wings fluttering against the wind like blades slicing the sky. "It's stronger. Much stronger than we thought," he said, heat vision flaring briefly, carving shallow trenches into the asphalt below. His voice was tense, uncharacteristically serious. "And it's learning from every attack." The shadow hissed, its tendrils lashing out in a frenzy. Its voice was low, guttural, and unnervingly intelligent. "Do you feel it?" it whispered, almost to itself, almost to the world. "The awakening, the greater power beneath. Soon all will bow." Then the ground exploded. A colossal form erupted from the fissure, towering above even the tallest skyscrapers nearby. Its skin was dark as obsidian, with jagged veins glowing a sinister green. Its eyes burned like molten fire, radiating malevolence that seemed to pierce the hearts of anyone who dared to look directly at them. Each movement sent shockwaves through the streets, shattering glass, toppling cars, and igniting fires in a chain reaction of destruction. The Leviathan stretched its massive arms, claws rending the earth and hurling chunks of concrete into the air like missiles. Its roar, a deafening, resonant sound that vibrated the very bones of every living being in Manhattan, echoed across the skyline, a terrifying proclamation of raw, unstoppable power. All Might propelled himself forward, fists blazing with golden energy, leaving streaks of light across the ruins as he closed the distance. "We cannot let it touch the civilians." His voice carried across the wind, resolute, commanding, a pillar of hope against the nightmare. Guardian Prime floated into the fray, aura radiating an even more intense golden light that cast shadows away like a cleansing sun. His voice resonated over the chaos. "Together we stand as one." Energy waves erupted from him, colliding with the Leviathan and causing massive explosions that shook the city to its core. Homelander dove, cutting through the sky like a meteor, slamming directly into the Leviathan's chest with a scream that split the air. Heat vision flared again, scorching the creature's obsidian skin. Sparks and fragments of debris flew everywhere, raining down upon streets filled with civilians fleeing in terror. The Leviathan reared back, arms swinging, and a shockwave knocked All Might and Homelander off balance, sending them crashing through the ruins of a skyscraper. Guardian Prime's shield flickered, energy straining to hold, as he countered the shockwave with a massive burst of golden force. From the top of a nearby high-rise, a civilian journalist shouted into her camera, breathless and terrified. I don't know if anyone can stop this. It's... Her words cut off as the Leviathan smashed down, tearing the street open and sending vehicles flying like toys. All Might sprang forward, leaping from the rubble, fists a blur of golden light, punching the Leviathan's jaw with enough force to crack concrete. The Leviathan's head snapped back, but it did not falter. Its claws swung in a wide arc, slicing through a building like paper. Shards of glass and steel pierced the air, the sound deafening, the destruction immediate. Homelander hovered mid-air, eyes narrowing, a dangerous smirk forming. "Let's see how you handle this." He launched forward, dual beams of heat vision cutting through the Leviathan's arm. Green energy sizzled as the attack made contact, and the creature roared, pain and fury blending into one massive sound. Guardian Prime extended his arms, unleashing a dome of golden energy that rippled outward, deflecting debris and protecting fleeing civilians. He focused on the Leviathan, every fiber of his being radiating light. "This ends now," he shouted. A concentrated beam of energy shot toward the Leviathan's chest, colliding with its dark energy in a blinding explosion that lit the entire island with a golden flare. The Leviathan reeled, staggering backward, but even in pain, its eyes glowed brighter. The shadow at its side hissed, whispering darkly, "Strike. Strike together. The world will crumble." Its tendrils extended toward All Might and Homelander, wrapping around them in a violent surge of power. Time seemed to slow. All Might's eyes met Guardian Prime's, nodding ever so slightly, a silent agreement of trust and determination. Homelander gritted his teeth, energy flaring hotter than ever. The three heroes surged in unison, a synchronized strike of light, strength, and speed aimed directly at the Leviathan and its dark companion. The impact was catastrophic. Shockwaves tore through the city, ripping streets apart, sending skyscrapers swaying dangerously. Fires leapt higher into the sky. The collision of forces lit the evening skyline like an exploding sun, reflections dancing across shattered glass and twisted steel. The sound, a mixture of roars, explosions, and energy blasts, was nearly unbearable, shaking the bones of anyone nearby. Then silence, for a heartbeat. The dust settled, revealing the Leviathan and Shadow still standing, though clearly battered. Their eyes burned with hatred and hunger, recognizing their challengers as genuine threats. A sudden, deeper tremor shakes Manhattan. The fissure beneath the city cracks further, revealing a cavernous void glowing with an ominous red light. Something else, older, far more terrifying than the Leviathan, is beginning to rise. Its immense shadow stretches across the city, blotting out the sun. Even the three heroes, battered and glowing with power, pause for a fraction of a second, realizing the battle is far from over. The city trembled, groaning under the weight of the unknown. Manhattan's skyline was no longer familiar. Skyscrapers jagged, streets torn open, fires burning like molten veins through the concrete jungle. The air shimmered with unstable energy, charged with the combined powers of All Might, Homelander, and Guardian Prime. But even their godlike auras flickered as something far older and far more immense began to emerge from the glowing fissure. From the abyss rose a figure so colossal it eclipsed the tallest skyscrapers. Its form was indistinct at first, a silhouette of pure dread. But as it ascended, details became horrifyingly clear. Its skin was a swirling vortex of molten rock and shadow, veins of red-hot energy coursing like rivers of fire. Horns spiraled from its head, jagged and blackened, while eyes burned like twin suns, piercing the smoke-filled sky. The ground shook violently with each movement, fissures racing across Manhattan in a network of destruction. All Might's eyes widened behind the heroic mask, capes snapping violently in the chaotic wind. This is unlike anything I've ever faced," he shouted, aura flaring so bright it carved golden streaks into the surrounding smoke. Every punch he had thrown, every heroic charge felt small against this ancient behemoth. Homelander hovered beside him, teeth gritted, wings beating against hurricane-strength gusts. "I've fought gods, I've destroyed cities, but this—" His voice faltered, rare doubt threading through his normally cold composure. Heat vision flared, carving trails through the crumbling sky. "It's alive, and it's calculating." The Leviathan from earlier let out a bellowing roar, green energy still rippling across its body, and moved to meet its master, bowing under its sheer presence. The shadow hissed beside it, tendrils writhing, feeding on the terror radiating from the massive entity. The two combined forces of destruction, ancient and newly born, created a perfect storm of chaos. Guardian Prime extended his arms, energy dome igniting in a brilliant golden light, shielding the scattered civilians. "We need to stop it from reaching the city center," he yelled. His voice cut through the roar of crumbling steel and exploding concrete, a beacon of focus and hope. His aura intensified, rays of golden energy slicing through the gloom, illuminating the heroes like celestial sentinels. The ancient entity stepped forward, each movement causing the earth to quake. Streets split beneath its colossal feet, cars flung like toys, and fires surged with a terrifying intensity. It roared, a sound that was part dragon, part volcano, part the scream of a dying star. The energy radiating from it warped reality itself. The air crackled, clouds twisted unnaturally, and time seemed to stutter for anyone caught too close. All Might leapt, fists blazing with golden light, streaking toward the creature with astonishing speed. Each punch slammed into its molten shadow-like flesh, sparks and fragments of rock exploding outward like miniature meteor impacts. He shouted, each word a command of hope and courage, "We won't let you destroy this world." Homelander followed, diving from the sky with a speed that split the wind. Heat vision cut into the creature's leg, carving shallow but glowing scars into molten skin. "I don't care who or what you are," he screamed, flaring power hotter than ever, wings slashing against the wind like golden blades. "You mess with this city, you answer to me." The Leviathan, emboldened, surged forward to join the fray, claws raking the street, sending steel beams and chunks of asphalt flying in every direction. Guardian Prime flared brighter, energy expanding in a dome that repelled debris and partially contained the Leviathan, buying precious seconds. But the ancient entity barely reacted. Its eyes shifted from the heroes to the fissure beneath the city, where molten light swirled, and a new ripple of energy pulsed outward. From the fissure rose smaller, shadowed creatures, monstrous and spindly, each no taller than a car but moving in swarms with coordinated precision. They hissed, screeched, and lunged at civilians and heroes alike, dark energy crackling around their claws. All Might slammed into the nearest cluster, fists moving like a golden blur. Each impact sent a shockwave through the street, scattering swarming creatures in arcs of dust, rubble, and blazing light. He yelled through the chaos, sweat and soot streaking his face, "Evacuate! Everyone move now!" Homelander unleashed a sweeping arc of heat vision, cutting through dozens of the smaller creatures, but more emerged instantly from the fissures. His expression hardened, jaw tight. This isn't just a fight, it's a test, and it's learning. Guardian Prime's aura expanded again, pushing back the swarm and levitating civilians to safety, lifting cars and rubble like toys, creating a path of golden light through the devastation. "We hold together or we fall separately," he shouted, energy spikes arcing into the incoming swarm, detonating them with blasts of pure light. The ancient entity finally moved fully into view, raising a colossal arm. Its shadowy veins glowed a deeper crimson, pulsing like a heartbeat. The air itself seemed to scream under the weight of its power. It struck the ground with a fist the size of a building. The impact sent a shockwave that flattened blocks of the city, twisting steel and shattering streets. Waves of fire surged outward, consuming everything in a radius of destruction. All Might, Homelander, and Guardian Prime were thrown back by the blast, crashing into the ruins of an old skyscraper. Dust and sparks blinded them, concrete embedded into armor and flesh but they rose instantly, aura flaring brighter than ever. Each knew that hesitation now meant death, not just for them, but for every civilian still trapped in the city's heart. As the heroes regroup, the fissure pulses violently. From its depths, a gigantic skeletal hand erupts, towering higher than any building. Its claws stretch toward the skyline, shadowed in molten veins and blazing red light. The ancient entity turns toward the heroes and with a roar that cracks the clouds above, declares in a voice that shakes reality itself, "I am the end, and you are merely the beginning." The city holds its breath, the heroes brace. The ultimate battle is about to begin. The skyline of Manhattan became unrecognizable, a fractured city suspended between fire, smoke, and jagged beams of glowing energy. The ground itself seemed alive, quivering under the weight of the ancient entity's movements. Each step it took cracked streets like shattered glass, fissures snaking outward, swallowing cars, streetlights, and rubble. From its molten veins, torrents of red energy poured into the smaller shadow creatures, mutating them, granting them size, speed, and ferocity that defied physics. All might surged forward, fists blazing with golden streaks that lit the dust-choked streets like miniature suns. He smashed into one of the massive shadowed mutants, pulverizing it into molten fragments that hissed as they evaporated into the air. "We have to push them back," he shouted over the roar of destruction, cape whipping violently in the chaotic wind. Every fiber of his being radiated heroic determination, aura blazing so intensely it illuminated the surrounding skyscrapers, casting long, dramatic shadows. Homelander cut through the swarm with ruthless precision, heat vision arcs searing into mutated forms, slicing limbs and evaporating smaller foes instantly. He hovered above the chaos, wings beating through hurricane-force gusts, golden light reflecting off the smoke in dazzling streaks. Yet even he felt the strain. The swarm adapted instantly, ducking, dodging, coordinating. "These things, they think," he growled jaw tight, eyes narrowing into lethal slits. "It's learning from us." Guardian Prime extended both hands skyward, unleashing a surge of energy that rippled through the battlefield like a shockwave. Buildings trembled under the force, debris levitating and spinning in arcs of golden light. His voice boomed, reverberating through the chaos. "We hold the line here. We protect the innocent, no matter what." The aura expanded outward, slamming into the mutated shadow creatures, vaporizing dozens in blinding explosions of light. Sparks flew through the ruined streets, igniting fires and illuminating the heroes' determined faces. The ancient entity roared, a sound that shook the clouds and made the very air tremble. It raised both colossal arms, molten veins glowing brighter, and slammed them into the ground simultaneously. The shockwave sent a city block tumbling, concrete and steel twisting like paper. The fissures beneath it erupted, and from the molten depths more creatures poured forth, bigger, faster, their forms shadowed and jagged, dripping with molten energy. All Might leapt, propelling himself through the chaos with speed rivaling light. He smashed into a massive mutant, sending fragments of its molten body flying across the streets. His eyes burned with golden determination, voice loud and unwavering. "I won't let you destroy this city. I am the symbol of peace." Each impact carved trails of light, sparks exploding in cinematic bursts as rubble was hurled into the sky. Homelander surged forward from above, diving straight into the heart of the mutant swarm. Heat vision arcs cut through the chaos like twin blades of molten fury, and his fists collided with the creatures in devastating blows. "You will bow or burn," he shouted, teeth gritted, eyes blazing. His aura flared, wings slashing through the air, golden light reflecting against the shattered skyline like a vengeful sun. But the ancient entity moved with terrifying precision. With one massive hand, it scooped up an entire street block, smashing it down into the hero's path. Concrete cracked, fire erupted, and steel twisted. The smaller shadow creatures scattered, attacking anything that moved. The city's survival hung by a thread as explosions of molten energy lit the dusk sky. Guardian Prime's aura surged, forming a dome of golden light over a cluster of civilians. His energy arcs lashed outward, vaporizing mutated creatures as he maneuvered through the chaos. "Evacuate! Move now!" he bellowed. Cars levitated, debris cleared, civilians shielded within arcs of energy. But the swarm adapted instantly, moving as a coordinated force, hissing, lunging, claws crackling with molten fury. All Might slammed his fist into a massive, molten, armored beast, golden energy scattering sparks, chunks of molten rock flying. The impact sent shockwaves that rattled the remaining skyscrapers. "Homelander, focus on the massive one," he yelled. "If we don't stop it, nothing will remain of this city." Homelander's eyes narrowed, heat vision flaring hotter than ever. He launched a sweeping arc across the entity's massive chest, scorching molten cracks into its shadowed form. The being roared, swinging its colossal fist at him. He dodged with a supersonic flip, barely avoiding being crushed. Sparks, molten debris, and shards of steel exploded in the air, painting a cinematic picture of destruction. The ground shook violently as the entity stomped, sending all three heroes sprawling. Fissures opened, green molten energy spitting upward, creating walls of fire and smoke. From one fissure, a gigantic skeletal hand erupted, blackened with red-hot veins, reaching toward the skyline. Its claws sliced through buildings like paper, casting shadows that swallowed streets whole. All Might clenched his fists, aura blazing so brightly it illuminated the collapsing skyline. "We cannot falter, not now." He launched himself at the skeletal hand, moving faster than the eye could follow. Every punch he landed sent shockwaves, chunks of debris exploding outward in golden sparks. Homelander followed suit, diving with blinding speed, heat vision arcs cutting trails through the chaos. "I've fought gods, I've faced armies, but this is different," he yelled, slashing through mutated creatures with ruthless precision, wings reflecting the molten fires below. Guardian Prime extended a final surge of golden energy, arcs lashing outward, vaporizing the swarm in blinding bursts. "We hold the line, together." His voice was a booming clarion, energy tearing through the rubble, levitating debris into a shield for fleeing civilians. But the ancient entity bellowed again, molten shadow, body glowing, veins pulsing, skeletal hand rising higher, its voice a thunderous, reality-shaking echo carried across the city. "Futile, you cannot stop the inevitable. Manhattan will burn, and all who dwell shall kneel before me." From the fissure below, molten energies surged upward, forming a towering vortex of fire and shadow that threatened to consume the remaining city blocks. Sparks, molten fragments, and energy arcs whirled violently, tearing through streets, buildings, and airborne vehicles. The heroes braced themselves. All Might's eyes burned with unwavering hope. Homelander's heat vision flared hotter than ever, and Guardian Prime's golden aura expanded to its absolute limit. They were battered, bruised, pushed to the edge, but they would not give in. The entity swung its colossal skeletal hand downward, aimed at the intersection where the heroes regrouped. The impact would either shatter them or ignite the ultimate counterstrike. Dust, sparks, and molten debris filled the air. All Might shouted, This city will not fall. And then the fist connected with the skyline. The colossal fist slammed down with the force of a meteor, shaking the entire city to its foundations. Glass shattered, steel girders twisted like tinfoil, and molten debris rained down in a glittering, deadly shower. The streets buckled, cracks radiating outward like spiderwebs, swallowing vehicles and streetlights whole. Smoke and dust filled the air, creating a hellish twilight under the remaining sunlight. All Might's aura flared brighter than ever, a golden beacon against the molten darkness. He launched himself forward with a scream, fists blazing trails of light as he collided with the giant skeletal hand mid-swing. Sparks and molten fragments erupted from the impact, lighting up the crumbling skyline in bursts of cinematic brilliance. The shockwave sent both hero and monster flying backward, chunks of rubble floating in mid-air before gravity reclaimed them. Homelander hovered above, wings slicing through the turbulence. Heat vision arcs tore through the air, carving trails of molten fire across the entity's massive, shadowed form. Each strike left glowing cracks across its molten chest, yet the being's molten veins pulsed more violently, adapting instantly. This thing, it evolves. Homelander growled, fury and disbelief flickering across his perfect visage. From below, Guardian Prime's golden aura expanded like a solar flare. Energy arcs surged in all directions, levitating debris and civilians, forming protective shields and repelling the smaller mutated creatures. His voice boomed, reverberating through the dust-filled streets. "All forces converge! End this now!" Sparks and golden light collided with molten shadow, hissing, cracking, and erupting in violent cinematic flares. The ancient entity roared, molten tendrils lashing outward, smashing skyscrapers, uprooting lampposts, and hurling debris with terrifying precision. The city's survival hung by a thread, yet amidst the chaos the heroes pushed forward, synchronized in a deadly ballet of light, heat, and motion. All Might unleashed a massive united smash punch, a golden meteor of pure energy that collided with one of the entity's molten arms. Explosions of light and debris erupted in all directions. His cape flared like a comet, streaming streaks of gold through the dust-choked air. "I am here to protect," he yelled, eyes blazing with unwavering determination. Homelander plunged downward, heat vision arcs converging into a single, concentrated blast. The molten energy of the ancient entity hissed and sizzled under the assault, yet it only roared louder, swinging its massive limbs with devastating force. Buildings cracked and crumbled, streets buckled, and molten rivers streamed through the ruins like glowing veins of a dying world. The heroes coordinated, moving in perfect synchronicity. Guardian Prime's golden arcs intertwined with All Might's strikes and Homelander's heat vision, forming a blinding prism of light and energy that collided with the entity's molten body. The impact sent shockwaves across the city, detonating cars, leveling smaller buildings, and sending debris flying in all directions. Sparks rained from every shattered surface, illuminating the remaining skyline in chaotic bursts of cinematic glory. The ancient entity roared, molten veins flaring brighter, skeletal hands swinging with cataclysmic force. Its molten tendrils erupted upward, forming a towering inferno engulfing nearby buildings and casting long, sinister shadows across the heroes' faces. The vortex of shadow and fire twisted violently, hissing, cracking, and threatening to engulf the entire island. All Might clenched his fists, eyes blazing like twin suns. He leapt, his momentum leaving streaks of golden light across the air, slamming into the molten vortex with a force that made the ground quake. Homelander dove in from above, wings cutting arcs through the chaos, heat vision converging into a lethal strike. Guardian Prime extended a massive surge of golden energy, arcs twisting and lashing through the vortex, intersecting All Might and Homelander's strikes in a perfect explosion of cinematic fury. The collision was cataclysmic. Molten shadow and golden energy erupted in all directions. Skyscrapers swayed, glass shattered, molten rivers boiled, and debris flew like shooting stars. The vortex twisted violently, then began to collapse in on itself as the combined assault of the heroes pierced its molten heart. The entity let out a deafening roar, molten veins flaring brighter than ever, then began to crack, its form destabilizing under the overwhelming power of the combined heroes. Yet even as the vortex imploded, a fragment of molten shadow shot upward, leaving a jagged streak of red-hot molten energy against the smoke-filled sky. The skeletal hand, partially destroyed, writhed in the rubble like a wounded leviathan. The city still trembled, buildings smouldering, fires burning, and civilians scrambling for safety amidst the chaos. All Might stood, fists raised, cape fluttering in the wind. His golden aura shimmered amidst the dust and smoke, face streaked with sweat and grit, eyes unwavering. "This city will survive," he shouted, voice echoing over the ruined streets. Homelander hovered, wings extended, heat vision arcs still glowing in his eyes, chest heaving. He scanned the wreckage, golden aura reflecting off his cold, calculating eyes. "This is only the beginning," he muttered, realization flickering as the entity's final, molten fragment pulsed, lingering ominously, hinting at something far worse yet to come. Guardian Prime extended his hands, golden arcs dissipating, stabilizing debris, and protecting the remaining civilians. "We've held on for now, but the threat is not over. Manhattan may have survived, but the real battle is still ahead." Above, the molten fragment shimmered, suspended in midair, pulsating with ominous energy. Sparks and molten droplets drifted downward, igniting fires, leaving the city on edge. The heroes regrouped, battered but alive, standing amidst ruins that would soon rebuild, but the shadow of the entity lingered. Its presence, a promise of destruction yet to come. The molten fragment pulsated, growing larger, red-hot veins spreading like wildfire through the air. A thunderous, distant voice echoed across the skyline. "You think this is over? Fools? I am eternal, and soon the world will burn." The camera pans up, showing the Manhattan skyline partially destroyed, fires glowing, smoke swirling, and the heroes standing resolute. But the threat looms larger than ever. The screen fades to black. The molten fragment hovered ominously above the city, pulsating like a heartbeat of pure destruction. Each pulse sent shivers through the ground, cracks spiderwebbing outward from the epicenter. Cars tumbled into fissures, streetlights bent like wires, and a faint, ear-splitting hum reverberated through Manhattan's ruined skyline. Smoke and ash twisted into spirals, illuminated by the molten glow that bathed the streets in hellish red and orange. All Might's fists burned with concentrated energy. He darted across the rubble-strewn streets, rescuing civilians trapped beneath collapsed debris. His movements were fluid, each heroic leap punctuated by bursts of golden light. Dust and sparks followed him like a cinematic trail of hope. "Get out of here!" he shouted, pulling a mother and child from a crumbling building, his eyes scanning the sky for the next surge of molten chaos. Homelander hovered high above, wings slicing arcs through the smoky sky. Heat vision pulses streaked from his eyes like crimson lasers, cutting through the fragment's glowing aura. The molten fragment shimmered, splitting into smaller, jagged shards that shot in all directions like fiery meteors. Each shard impacted streets and buildings, exploding into molten geysers that hurled debris into the air. The city groaned, a living organism under siege. Fire and molten rivers twisted through avenues. Smoke spiraled in gigantic columns, and every corner seemed to conceal another threat. Guardian Prime extended his golden energy barriers, arcs whipping and crackling as he shielded fleeing civilians from the scattered molten shards. His aura was a radiant storm, illuminating the rubble-strewn streets in flashes of cinematic brilliance. Suddenly the largest fragment twisted violently, splitting further into a massive, molten skeletal hand that clawed at the sky. The hand slammed down, smashing skyscrapers in a thunderous crash, sending tremors through the ground. Debris erupted like volcanoes, raining sparks, molten metal, and shattered glass on the remaining streets. All Might charged forward, a comet of golden energy streaking through the smoke. His fist collided with the molten hand mid-slam, sparks and molten chunks flying in a radiant explosion. "I won't let you hurt them," his voice cut through the chaos, unwavering. Homelander dove, wings cutting through the molten storm. His heat vision concentrated into a searing beam aimed at the heart of the fragment. The molten energy hissed, splitting with violent cracks and splashes of lava-like fire, yet it was adapting faster than either hero could anticipate. "This thing, it's learning," Homelander muttered, scanning its shifting structure. Guardian Prime stepped forward, extending arcs of golden energy in a protective dome, pushing back molten tendrils that sought to incinerate fleeing civilians. "We need a combined strike. All might, Homelander. Now." His voice was commanding, resonating through the smoke and chaos like a clarion call. The three heroes converged. All Might's fists collided with the molten core. Homelander's heat vision fused with Guardian Prime's golden energy, and together they created a blinding explosion of cinematic brilliance. Sparks, molten shards, and dust whirled in a vortex, illuminating Manhattan in a hellish, chaotic glow. The fragment shrieked, molten veins twisting violently, then burst into smaller fragments that scattered through the city, each leaving trails of fire and destruction. Manhattan's skyline was scarred, streets cracked and molten rivers still flowing, yet the three heroes stood tall, battered but unbroken. As the smoke cleared, a low, sinister hum grew in the distance. A colossal shadow moved behind the shattered skyline, impossibly massive, molten fragments orbiting like moons around it. The fragment wasn't gone. It had merged with something far larger, far more dangerous. A voice rumbled from the darkness. "Fools, the world is mine. You cannot stop me." The camera pans upward to the shattered skyline, molten fires reflecting off the ominous shadow, hinting at a threat greater than anything the heroes have faced yet. The shadow loomed over the city like a black sun, molten fragments orbiting its massive frame like satellites of destruction. Its body was a swirling mass of magma and obsidian, veins of glowing crimson pulsing like a heartbeat of apocalypse. Manhattan's skyline trembled under its presence. Skyscrapers quivered, glass shattered, and streets buckled beneath invisible tremors. The air was thick with heat and ash, and every inhale burned lungs like fire. All Might landed in the middle of a cracked avenue, dust and rubble swirling around him. His cape snapped in the turbulent wind, golden aura flaring brighter with every heartbeat. "It's bigger than before, but I can't let fear stop me," he muttered, scanning the gargantuan entity. Homelander hovered beside him, eyes narrowed, heat vision glowing ominously red. "It adapted, and it's smart," he said, voice low, ice cold. His gaze swept over the molten fragments orbiting the monster, each shard now functioning like autonomous weapons, hurling themselves at buildings and civilians alike. Suddenly, the entity lashed out. One massive molten arm swung down like a falling skyscraper. Streets exploded in fire and molten debris, cars were flung like toys, and clouds of dust choked the air. The impact sent a shockwave across the city, rattling windows and toppling streetlights. All Might leapt forward, fists glowing gold, moving with superhuman precision. Each punch shattered molten shards mid-air, arcs of golden energy scattering fragments like sparks from a forge. His heroic smile remained unwavering amid chaos. "Everyone get clear, I'll hold it off." Homelander shot forward, cutting through molten fireballs with his speed, heat vision slicing shards into molten dust. "You think your strength is enough?" he hissed, striking one fragment with a precision blast that sent a geyser of molten metal skyward. The entity roared, a sound that resonated through every building, shaking the very foundations of Manhattan. Molten fragments detached, spinning like fiery meteors, striking streets, walls, and bridges. Guardian Prime extended massive energy barriers, arcs of golden light lancing through the fiery storm, shielding fleeing civilians. Sparks and molten streaks collided with the barriers, lighting the scene like a cinematic lightning storm. The three heroes converged, forming a triangle around the entity. All Might charged, Homelander dove, and Guardian Prime's energy surged, creating a combined strike of golden aura and crimson heat. Their attack collided with the entity's molten body, exploding in a blinding eruption of fire, light, and debris. Smoke swirled in cinematic clouds, sparks flying like fireworks as molten fragments disintegrated mid-air. But the entity was relentless. Its body regenerated faster than expected, molten veins reweaving, forming spikes and claws that jabbed into the shattered streets. It split its massive arms into multiple molten appendages, each slamming into buildings, crumbling structures into molten rubble. The city groaned under its relentless assault. Amid the chaos, All Might caught a glimpse of the civilians trapped under a collapsing building. With a mighty leap, he landed atop the rubble, pushing beams aside as molten streams dripped dangerously close. His aura flared golden, lighting the scene like a beacon. "I will protect them, no matter what," he shouted, every word radiating hope amid destruction. Homelander zoomed past, carving a path through molten fragments, heat vision blazing in twin streaks. "This is getting out of hand," he muttered, a rare note of concern piercing his usually cold demeanor. The entity's molten core pulsed violently. Then, with a deafening roar, it hurled a massive fragment skyward. It exploded into molten shards mid-air, raining fire and molten debris across the city. Guardian Prime extended a massive dome of energy, shielding the civilians, the light from the dome casting dramatic shadows on the destroyed streets. Suddenly, the entity's molten eyes glowed brighter, and a deep, sinister voice echoed across Manhattan. "You cannot stop evolution. I will consume everything." The ground shook violently, fissures cracking deeper, molten rivers spreading, consuming streets and vehicles in seconds. The three heroes exchanged a glance, determination blazing in their eyes. "We end this together," All Might said, fists clenched and glowing gold. Homelander nodded, heat vision flaring, wings cutting arcs through the smoke-filled sky. Guardian Prime raised both arms, golden energy pulsating like a storm ready to strike. As they launched their ultimate combined strike, the entity's molten body split into a dozen colossal fragments, each with its own fiery appendages circling the heroes like deadly satellites. The city trembled, and a new, deeper rumble emerged from beneath the streets, something older, larger, and far more terrifying than the molten monster. The camera pans upward, showing Manhattan engulfed in fire and molten debris, while the shadow of an even greater, unknown force begins rising from below the shattered streets, hinting at a threat that could eclipse anything the heroes have faced. The ground beneath Manhattan shuddered like a living heartbeat, cracks snaking through streets, swallowing cars, asphalt, and streetlights alike. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes, smoke spiraled into the darkening sky, and the smell of molten metal and ozone filled the air. The earlier battle felt small now, mere sparks against the roaring inferno of what was about to emerge. All Might landed on the fractured avenue, golden aura flaring wildly, dust and rubble swirling like a storm around him. His cape snapped violently in the turbulent wind, and his eyes scanned the city, now trembling with panic. Civilians ran screaming, their shadows flickering across walls painted with molten light and smoke. This isn't just a monster," he muttered, jaw tight, fists glowing like molten sunlight. Homelander hovered above, wings slicing through smoke, his heat vision glowing crimson, reflecting off the shattered glass and molten rivers below. His usually calm face twisted with the tiniest hint of unease. "Something huge beneath us," he said, voice low and dangerous, the words barely carrying over the roar of collapsing buildings. Suddenly the earth cracked open with a deafening roar. Chunks of asphalt and concrete were flung into the air like meteorites. From the depths, a massive shape began to rise, a leviathan of shadow and steel, scales like obsidian, veins of blue electricity running across its body like lightning trapped in stone. Its eyes burned with a cold, otherworldly light, scanning the chaos above as if mocking the city's defenders. The sheer scale was terrifying. Skyscrapers now seemed like toy blocks beside it. The air vibrated with its roar, a sound that shook lungs, rattled teeth, and set car alarms screaming across the city. Steam hissed as molten rivers hit its massive, cold obsidian limbs, instantly vaporizing into clouds that obscured the streets in blinding smoke. Every inch of Manhattan seemed to quake in response to its emergence. All Might surged forward, golden aura blazing, leaping from rubble to rubble with unstoppable force. "We have to protect the civilians, no matter the cost." His fists struck down massive debris, throwing molten fragments away from trapped people, golden sparks flying like a blazing storm. Homelander descended with blinding speed, wings beating like twin hurricanes, carving a path through molten debris. Heat vision flared in twin streaks, slicing into the Leviathan's armored limbs, sparks and cracks spreading like lightning across stone. "This isn't a fight we can take lightly," he hissed, his voice sharper than ever. This is on a different scale." The Leviathan reared its head, a mountain of shadow and steel, its jaws opening wide, releasing a deafening roar that blasted buildings like they were made of paper. A shockwave tore through the streets, hurling cars into the air, collapsing bridges, and sending molten rivers into frenzied spouts of steam. Dust, smoke, and molten fragments swirled in chaotic harmony, the city's skyline flickering in the haze like a painting in motion. All Might charged, energy flaring like a blazing comet, punching the Leviathan's limb. Sparks erupted, the impact sending shockwaves through the air, but the monster barely flinched, its obsidian scales glowing blue with electricity. It lashed out, sending All Might tumbling back across multiple streets, molten debris scorching the asphalt behind him. Homelander fired again, heat vision carving arcs across its massive body, but each beam was deflected by scales that hummed, with strange, otherworldly energy. The Leviathan's tail swept across an entire avenue, smashing vehicles like toys, sending smoke and sparks spiraling skyward. The city below was chaos incarnate. Flames, molten metal, crumbling buildings and panicked civilians flooding streets in every direction. The Statue of Liberty stood defiantly in the distance, bathed in a surreal glow of smoke and light, as if watching the battle unfold with solemn judgment. All Might landed amidst the rubble, fists blazing gold, aura flaring brighter than ever. We won't let it destroy this city. Not now, not ever. He leapt into the air, colliding with the Leviathan's massive chest, golden energy clashing against cold obsidian, arcs of electricity sparking wildly. Homelander joined from above, heat vision flaring, striking limbs and scales, creating eruptions of blue electricity and crimson light. Guardian Prime appeared next to them, energy shields forming like domes of golden light, protecting civilians and deflecting molten debris, sparks and falling rubble. But the Leviathan's roar grew deeper, almost intelligent. With a sudden, terrifying motion, it slammed a massive fist into the street, sending a shockwave that ripped through the city like a storm. Skyscrapers swayed, glass shattered, and streets split into molten chasms. Dust, smoke and sparks created a cinematic haze, illuminating the heroes in a desperate golden and crimson glow. Amid the chaos, a new sound emerged, deep, guttural, like the city itself screaming. The Leviathan's body pulsed, arcs of blue electricity racing along its scales, energy building into something catastrophic. It raised its head skyward, eyes glowing brighter, molten and electric energy mixing in a brilliant, terrifying display. The Leviathan opened its massive mouth, and the ground around it split further, revealing not just teeth, but the hint of an even darker, deeper force lurking beneath the city, an ancient entity awakening, older than Manhattan itself, radiating a power that dwarfed everything the heroes had faced. The camera pans outward, showing Manhattan engulfed in chaos, molten rivers, collapsed streets, and the three heroes preparing for a fight that could very well determine the fate of the entire city and perhaps the world. The city groaned beneath the Leviathan's weight. Steam hissed from shattered pipelines, molten rivers churned like angry serpents, and the streets themselves cracked and buckled under its presence. The ground vibrated with every step the massive creature took, sending tremors through the hero's legs, rattling nerves, and making glass rain down like glittering knives. All Might launched into the air, aura blazing like a solar flare, fists clenched, capes snapping violently. Each leap created shockwaves that sent chunks of asphalt flying, his golden glow contrasting against the black-blue electricity crackling along the Leviathan's scales. "We can't hold back," he shouted, voice carrying over the roar of destruction. "This is what it means to protect." Homelander hovered nearby, eyes sharp, heat vision slicing through molten debris with precise, deadly arcs. He dodged chunks of concrete as they flew like missiles, wings whipping the smoke into twisted, violent spirals. "It's bigger, stronger, smarter," he muttered under his breath, tone tight, almost reverent. "This isn't a normal opponent." The Leviathan's eyes scanned them like predators sizing up prey. With a sudden, shuddering motion, it slammed both fists into the street simultaneously. The impact ripped a chasm across several city blocks, molten metal and cracked concrete flying into the air. The heroes were thrown off balance, their energy blasts barely denting its obsidian armor. Sparks of blue electricity arced into the air, igniting fires in waves of chaotic brilliance. All Might twisted mid-air, striking the Leviathan's side with a charged punch, golden energy flaring in brilliant arcs, The impact made the ground tremble, sending a cascade of rubble tumbling down skyscrapers' sides. Yet the Leviathan barely flinched. Its tail whipped around like a living battering ram, smashing cars and lampposts with bone-jarring force. Homelander fired heat vision relentlessly, beams crisscrossing and striking scales, creating small explosions of molten sparks and searing heat. The Leviathan countered with a massive swing of its clawed arm, sending Homelander rocketing into the air, narrowly avoiding a collapse of a burning building behind him. "Too much, too fast," Homelander muttered, regrouping mid-air, eyes scanning for a weakness. His expression shifted from arrogance to grim calculation. "We need a combined force." From the edge of the chaos, a golden shimmer appeared. Guardian Prime soared into the scene, energy shields expanding in protective domes around panicked civilians. His voice boomed over the cacophony. "All might, Homelander! Focus on containment! Evacuate civilians! I'll hold the streets!" His shield emitted blinding bursts of light, deflecting molten debris and electrical surges from the Leviathan, giving the heroes precious seconds to strike. The Leviathan's roar shook the very air, blue electricity arcing from its scales in jagged, violent patterns. It lunged upward, massive claws slicing through the air toward All Might. He countered mid-leap, golden aura flaring as fists collided with clawed limbs. Sparks flew, smoke and molten rock rising in blinding clouds around them. A nearby skyscraper shook violently, windows exploding outward, glass shards glittering like deadly rain. The heroes barely dodged, and in that instant the Leviathan's tail lashed out again, smashing a bridge into molten ruins. Vehicles plunged into fiery chasms, and screaming civilians scattered as energy arcs illuminated the hellish cityscape. All Might clenched his fists, aura intensifying, his voice fierce, unwavering. "We can do this together." Homelander nodded, eyes narrowing, heat vision and golden aura ready, the first time he acknowledged a teammate in battle with raw respect. The two surged forward, a golden and crimson streak of hope and terror, smashing into the Leviathan with a combined force that made the city tremble. Impact waves radiated outward, blowing out windows and sending molten fragments skyward in slow-motion arcs, painting the chaos in cinematic brilliance. The Leviathan staggered, blue energy pulsating along its limbs, arcs of electricity exploding outward, illuminating the rubble and dust around the heroes. Yet even as it staggered, a deeper, darker rumble came from below the city's fractured streets, like the heartbeat of something ancient, far older than Manhattan itself. The Leviathan's body quivered, electric veins glowing brighter, molten energy bubbling from cracks in the asphalt beneath it. Suddenly, the ground split open again. From the new fissure, shadows surged upward, forming a towering shape behind the Leviathan, an even darker, more terrifying entity. Its eyes glowed with an incomprehensible depth of power, and energy rippled outward like a gravitational wave, pushing heroes back with invisible force. Every hero's aura flared defensively, and even Homelander's usually unshakable confidence faltered. The Leviathan roared, recognizing its master, and a surge of combined electricity and molten energy erupted from its body, slamming All Might and Homelander backward. Rubble flew, molten metal hissed, and a shockwave shattered nearby streets, sending civilians screaming and tumbling. The city itself seemed to convulse under the raw, unbridled power of the awakening entity. All Might landed hard on fractured asphalt, fists sparking, aura flaring brighter than ever. Sweat, dust and blood mixed across his determined face. "It's not over," he gasped, jaw tight, golden aura flickering like molten fire. Homelander hovered above, wings beating furiously, heat vision arcs firing intermittently to keep debris and falling rubble away. He looked down at the emerging darkness and muttered, almost in awe, This isn't just a monster. This is an apocalypse in motion." The towering shadow behind the Leviathan fully revealed itself, a being of incomprehensible scale, power radiating in waves that warped the air, turning fire into black smoke and molten energy into lightning storms. Its first movement caused a shockwave that tore through Manhattan, sending both heroes skidding backward, barely holding their ground. The fate of the city and the world hung on the edge of an impossible fight as the ultimate force of destruction prepared to strike. The air itself seemed to fracture under the presence of the colossal shadow. Its sheer size blotted out the sky, energy radiating from it like an aurora of chaos, distorting light and warping sound. Buildings trembled, glass exploded in showers of shards, and molten rivers from broken streets hissed violently as it stepped forward. Manhattan was now a battlefield of molten craters, shattered steel, and burning rubble, the streets a chaotic labyrinth for fleeing civilians. All might rose into the air, golden aura blazing like a miniature sun, each motion sending shockwaves that rippled across the city. "We face the impossible, but we fight anyway," he shouted, voice echoing through the hellish canyon of destruction. His first punch slammed against the Leviathan, which in turn recoiled and braced itself against the shadow behind it. Sparks of gold collided with surges of blue electricity, explosions of molten debris illuminating their clash in cinematic brilliance. Homelander hovered just above, wings cutting through smoke like blades, eyes narrowed as heat vision crisscrossed towards the colossal shadow. "If this thing wants annihilation, we'll give it resistance," he muttered, firing concentrated beams that carved molten channels into the ground, lighting up chunks of rubble like molten lanterns. Each hit barely scratched the entity's blackened, shimmering hide, but the impact sent shockwaves that displaced cars and shattered lampposts in slow-motion arcs. From a safe distance, Guardian Prime expanded his shields, forming concentric protective barriers around civilians fleeing through the chaos. Energy rippled outward in golden waves, deflecting molten splashes and electrical arcs. His voice boomed, "Keep moving! Do not let despair take hold. They'll need us alive." The shields illuminated faces in a golden glow, framing fear and hope in equal measure. The shadow moved, colossal limbs sweeping in arcs that crushed streets and sent skyscrapers teetering. Its first strike triggered an entire chain reaction. Telephone poles snapped like twigs, cars were hurled into the sky, and molten rivers boiled over their channels. The ground itself became a shifting battlefield, cracking and buckling beneath the heroes as the entity unleashed its incomprehensible force. All might surged forward, aura flaring, fists blazing with golden energy that shimmered like solar flares. He struck the Leviathan again, driving it forward into the path of the shadow. Sparks, molten rock, and debris spiraled outward in every direction, capturing the clash in cinematic detail. Civilians screamed, some frozen in terror, some fleeing desperately, all illuminated by the hellish glow of destruction. Homelander angled his body, wings slicing through molten debris as heat vision cut arcs of light through the smoke. He struck the shadow's forearm only for the attack to glance off harmlessly, sending a shockwave that lifted him backward. His expression hardened, jaw tight. "This isn't just power, this is raw annihilation," he muttered, eyes narrowing as he recalculated every attack. The Leviathan roared, a deafening, bone-shaking sound that harmonized with the shadow's low, rumbling growl. Electricity arced violently across the sky, striking molten rivers, igniting new fires, and sending debris tumbling in all directions. The two monstrous beings merged their destructive energy, creating a localized storm of fire, electricity, and kinetic force that the heroes had to navigate with precision and sheer instinct. All Might's voice cut through the chaos. "Homelander! Now! Together!" He flung himself into a powerful mid-air strike, fists glowing like twin suns. Homelander dove from above, heat vision flaring, wings propelling him like a comet. Their combined assault hit the Leviathan and Shadow simultaneously, generating an explosion so massive that glass and steel were pulverized, molten chunks spiraled skyward, and the air itself seemed to bend under the force. For a heartbeat, everything paused. The Shadow staggered, its massive form flickering under the assault, revealing a glimpse of humanoid features beneath the obsidian aura, eyes glowing with incomprehensible knowledge, an almost mocking calm in the maelstrom of chaos surrounding it. The Leviathan shrieked, stumbling under the combined might, molten energy erupting from fissures in its skin. But the pause was brief. With a roar that split the sky, the Shadow surged forward, limbs smashing the street, sending All Might and Homelander skidding backward with bone-jarring impact. Skyscrapers trembled and cracked, molten rivers surged into new channels, and civilians screamed as waves of destruction cascaded around them. All Might staggered to his feet, fists glowing brighter than ever, sweat, dust, and blood streaking his face. "We cannot fail." His voice was low, determined, almost a whisper against the roar of chaos, yet every syllable carried the weight of unwavering resolve. Homelander hovered, wings beating furiously, eyes glinting with a rare mix of focus and fear. Heat vision arcs flickered as he recalibrated, analyzing the Shadow's every movement, searching for an opening that might exist in this impossible colossus. "We need a strategy," he muttered. His pride would never admit weakness, yet even he understood this was no ordinary fight. From behind the chaos, Guardian Prime's voice rang out, steady, commanding, "Hold the line. Evacuate civilians. Give the heroes the space they need." His energy shields expanded, pulsing with a golden rhythm, pushing back molten rivers and falling debris, buying precious seconds in the storm of destruction. The Leviathan roared again, electricity dancing across its scales, molten veins cracking open and spewing fire, each movement shaking the city like a quake. The Shadow mirrored its companion, limbs sweeping, energy rippling outward, warping everything it touched. The sky darkened as thick clouds swirled above, illuminated by fire, energy arcs, and the shattered neon of Manhattan. All Might and Homelander launched into another combined strike, the air burning with golden aura and heat vision, as their fists collided with the Leviathan and Shadows simultaneously. Explosions of molten rock and electricity erupted, sending shockwaves that ripped across Manhattan. The ground cracked, fires roared, and debris shot into the sky in cinematic arcs. The Shadow reared back, energy pulsing, before unleashing a massive shockwave aimed at the heroes, a wave of pure annihilation, tearing through streets, buildings, and the very air between them. All Might's aura blazed, Homelander's heat vision flared, and Guardian Prime's shields expanded to their maximum, but even together, the wave threatens to engulf them. The fate of the city, the heroes, and the world hangs by a thread as the ultimate attack descends. The shockwave hit with the force of a collapsing star. Streets ruptured, skyscrapers trembled, and molten rivers surged violently, hissing as they devoured asphalt and steel. Dust and debris filled the air, turning Manhattan into a fiery, chaotic inferno. All Might's golden aura flared outward like a miniature sun, pushing back the shockwave in a blinding explosion of light. His fists moved faster than the eye could track, smashing into molten craters, each strike radiating kinetic energy that reverberated across the city. Homelander dove from above, wings slicing through the hellish sky, heat vision beams crisscrossing the Leviathan's obsidian hide. Sparks erupted as the attacks collided with molten armor, electricity arcing in dazzling cinematic patterns. His expression was sharp, eyes glinting with deadly precision. "This ends now," he muttered, voice cold, unwavering as he launched into a rapid barrage of blows that carved molten scars across the Leviathan's limbs. Guardian Prime formed a massive glowing sphere of energy around the fleeing civilians, shielding them from falling debris and molten explosions. "We hold them together or the city dies," his voice boomed, the shield radiating a golden rhythm in the storm, each pulse deflecting debris with cinematic precision, framing the civilians' fearful faces against the chaotic inferno. All Might launched himself at the Leviathan with a roar, fists blazing like twin suns, aura radiating in powerful shockwaves. Each punch sent molten chunks flying, twisting debris into arcs that danced across the city in cinematic slow motion. His eyes, though streaked with sweat and dust, were fierce, radiating determination and hope. Homelander dove in from above, wings flaring, heat vision cutting through the smoke like twin blades of crimson light. Each strike hit the Leviathan's molten armor, sparks flying in every direction, electricity dancing across the shattered street. His golden aura clashed with All Might's solar brilliance in an epic display of cinematic light and shadow, every motion creating shockwaves that warped the air itself. The shadow, towering behind the Leviathan, began to pulsate with unearthly energy, veins of dark electricity rippling across its colossal form. Its hands shot outward, tendrils of raw energy ripping through the ground, hurling chunks of skyscraper and molten debris like missiles. The heroes barely managed to dodge, the force displacing them mid-air, bodies tumbling through the smoky inferno. All Might gritted his teeth, aura flaring brighter. "We cannot falter." His fists struck again, each blow generating shockwaves that shattered streets and molten rivers alike, his golden light cutting through the dark chaos. Homelander's heat vision intensified, arcs of crimson cutting through the Leviathan's defenses, sparks raining in cinematic cascades as molten rivers boiled under the combined assault. Together he yelled, synchronizing his strikes with all might. Guardian Prime joined the assault, energy beams pulsing outward from his shield, striking both the Leviathan and Shadow, illuminating their forms with gold and blue radiance. Every strike cracked molten armor, every pulse disrupted the Shadow's energy flow. The Leviathan screeched, stumbling backward under the combined assault, molten veins bursting, electricity flickering across its obsidian scales. The Shadow raised its colossal arms, energy radiating outward in a final, massive pulse, an attack designed to obliterate everything in its path. All Might, Homelander, and Guardian Prime braced themselves. Golden aura, crimson heat vision, and shimmering energy collided against the pulse in an epic clash that shook the entire city. Glass shattered, molten rivers boiled, and skyscrapers crumbled under the force. And then, a blinding explosion of light. For a heartbeat, all was silence, dust, and debris frozen mid-air. The ground shook violently as energy dissipated, molten rivers cooling into blackened scars, buildings smoldering. In the aftermath, the Shadow staggered, massive form flickering under the relentless assault. The Leviathan lay partially shattered, molten veins cooling, sparks still dancing across its cracked body. All Might hovered, aura dimming but still radiant, fists clenched, eyes scanning for the next threat. Homelander hovered beside him, wings spread wide, heat vision flickering but unspent, expression tense, jaw tight. "We may have only delayed it," he muttered. Even his godlike confidence was shaken by the scale of destruction. From the streets, Guardian Prime's shields retracted, revealing civilians who looked on in awe and terror, faces streaked with dust, smoke, and soot. Their eyes reflected hope and despair in equal measure, illuminated by the fading glow of the hero's combined might. The shadow raised a colossal, trembling hand, energy surging violently, but for a fraction of a second it hesitated, its form flickering, almost unstable under the relentless attacks. All Might's golden aura flared one last time. "This is our moment," he roared, launching himself forward for the decisive strike. The cinematic scene froze in tension, heroes mid-air, shadows trembling, molten rivers reflecting the blazing light of their assault, the city hanging on the brink. Every citizen, every building, every heartbeat seemed caught in suspended anticipation. As All Might's punch and Homelander's heat vision converged on the Shadow's heart, the entity let out a soundless, bone-shaking pulse of energy. The sky cracked open, splitting into jagged veins of light and darkness. A new, unseen force began to awaken beneath the city, threatening to dwarf even the Shadow and Leviathan. The ultimate battle has only just begun. The fissures in the sky pulsed with unnatural light, jagged streaks of crimson and gold tearing through the heavens. From the yawning rift, a shadowy figure emerged, larger than any skyscraper, yet its form constantly shifting, like smoke and steel fused with raw energy. A deafening roar, not just heard but felt, reverberated through the city, cracking glass, twisting streets, and sending molten rivers into frantic eruptions. All Might's golden aura flared brighter than ever, radiating heat and force that pushed back against the pressure of the new entity. His fists clenched, trembling from exertion, yet his expression remained resolute. This is what we fight for." His voice boomed over the cacophony, a lighthouse of hope in the chaos. Homelander hovered beside him, wings slicing the smoky air, eyes narrowed, heat vision blazing like twin blades. "No one survives this without us stopping it." His usual smug arrogance was gone, replaced by a tension the city had never seen in its golden god. The figure descended slowly, every movement warping the very air, reality bending around its form. Streets cracked under invisible weight, cars and debris levitated, drawn toward the figure's dark aura. Its hands stretched skyward, energy veins branching outward, colliding with the jagged fissures above. The city trembled like a dying heartbeat. Guardian Prime activated his shield once more, a brilliant dome of blue-gold energy surrounding fleeing civilians. Energy ripples shot outward in waves, intercepting falling debris and molten eruptions. He shouted over the roar of collapsing steel, "Focus your energy! We hold them together or none survive this!" All Might leaped forward, aura flaring, fists blazing in a rapid, fiery blur. Each punch slammed into the new force's body, sending shockwaves that dislodged massive chunks of rubble. Sparks, molten debris, and radiant golden light collided, illuminating the twisting, surreal form of the entity. It barely flinched, however, its shadowy body flickering with dark energy. Homelander dove from above, wings cutting through the smoke, heat vision tearing arcs of crimson into the entity. Each strike was met with a wave of dark force, deflecting beams, twisting them mid-air. Collisions exploded in into miniature firestorms, molten streets evaporating, skyscraper fragments raining like meteors. The entity's voice, if it could be called that, rippled through reality itself, a deep, resonant tone that made the ground quiver. Mortals, insignificant, yet persistent. Suddenly tendrils of dark energy shot from its form, wrapping around skyscrapers and vehicles, bending them like toy models. One massive tendril lunged toward Guardian Prime's shield dome, shattering part of it in a cascade of sparks. The civilians screamed, ducking under the collapsing debris as molten fragments rained around them. All Might's fists struck again, each impact igniting the dark tendrils with golden light, causing arcs of energy to dance across the entity's form. He gritted his teeth, aura flaring violently, sweat and soot streaking his face. "We do not yield," Homelander screamed, heat vision intensifying to its maximum, wings beating furiously as he launched a flurry of attacks in perfect synchronization with All Might. The entity staggered slightly, shadows flickering under the onslaught, but it retaliated instantly. The tendrils lashed out like whips of obsidian flame, slicing streets, uprooting light poles, and sending molten rivers spiraling into the sky. The city shook violently. Skyscrapers buckled under the pressure. Central Park became a cratered battlefield, molten and scarred, smoke billowing into the darkening sky. Lightning-like energy arced from the entity's form, crackling against the hero's combined auras. Guardian Prime stepped forward, fists glowing with radiant energy, and projected a massive, concentrated blast toward the entity. The explosion collided with the dark tendrils mid-air, creating a cinematic shockwave that sent everyone airborne. Sparks and molten debris formed a kaleidoscope of chaos and light, illuminating terrified civilians below. For a brief, tense moment, the entity faltered. Its form flickered, unstable. The city itself seemed to hold its breath. All Might and Homelander hovered mid-air, fists poised, wings flared, aura blazing in unison. This was their chance, a decisive strike, one that could turn the tide. And then the entity laughed, a soundless vibration that resonated through every bone, every heartbeat, every structure. It began to absorb the ambient energy around it, dark veins spreading across its massive body, consuming molten rivers, collapsing buildings, even fragments of All Might's golden aura. Its form grew larger, more distorted, a living nightmare stretching across the skyline. All Might's fist collided with the entity's chest in a brilliant burst of golden energy. Homelander's heat vision tore through its form. Guardian Prime's beam pierced its shadowy mass, but the entity absorbed it all, pulsing with unimaginable power. And then the ground beneath them cracked open. From the depths of the fissure, a new, even more colossal force began to rise, one that could consume them all. The ultimate battle is about to begin.